Doug Badger with the Heritage Foundation now joining us. Doug, always a pleasure.
Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So a little background from a Montana perspective. So we had a state auditor who was a Democrat during the Obamacare years initially, and every year they announced double-digit rate hikes for the Obamacare insurance policies, right? Now we have a Republican state auditor who implemented some reforms, and of course Trump's been implementing some reforms. And for the first time ever, we actually saw a decrease in the rates. And it's just kind of funny because one of the Democrat candidates for state auditor acknowledged the rate hike headlines of the past, but refused to acknowledge the rate decline headline of today.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because after Congress failed to follow through on its promise to repeal and replace Obamacare, the Trump administration got to work and tried to put out some affordable alternatives to Obamacare, and they've done that in a variety of ways. There are new policies, new products that are coming online that are much more affordable than those plans that what they call ACA compliant plans that comply with all of the Obamacare rules and regulations. The other thing that they did was to give states some flexibility on how they design their markets. Now, not a lot of flexibility because the law is pretty rigid, but there are things that states can do. They can take money that would have been paid directly from the federal government to insurance companies as premium subsidies. They can take that and put that into a pool and use it to provide coverage of very expensive medical bills that people with pre-existing conditions incur. And when they do that, when they focus resources on people in the greatest medical needs, that takes pressure off the insurance premiums for most of us who are in reasonably good health. And so simply by taking the Obamacare money and spending it in a little smarter way, what happens is premiums start to go down in Obamacare, something that the Obama administration, ironically, was unable to do.
So basically, the states are having to figure out ways, well, and thanks to the Trump administration for allowing the states to be able to figure out ways, but basically the states are having to figure out ways to deal with the high cost of health insurance because of the Obamacare train wreck that's been forced on all of us across this country. What are some of the key things that these states are doing? I know you pointed in particular to 7 states who have obtained waivers to deviate from some of the Obamacare mandates.
That's right. And those states essentially have done various kinds of arrangements, as I mentioned, to try to focus resources on people in the greatest medical need. Now, they do it with some very fancy-sounding arrangements. Some of them are called invisible high-risk pools. Some of them are called reinsurance arrangements. But essentially what they're saying is that some portion of people who are buying individual health insurance policies are running up some very big bills. Maybe you have a couple that has a baby that has a lot of problems at birth and runs up big bills. Maybe you have people with diabetes or cancer. And what these arrangements allow you to do is to separate those people out, devote more resources to their medical care, and that way the vast majority of people who are paying premiums get to pay a little bit less.
One of the points that really stands out to me that you make here, which is great, it reminds me of the tax cut debate. You know, when President Trump was proposing the tax cuts and everybody on the left, including our own Democrat governor here in Montana, were claiming that, well, if we cut these taxes, we're going to see gaping holes in revenues. we actually saw a huge bump in revenues, more than even our own lawmakers expected here in Montana, definitely more than our governor expected. Same thing with Obamacare. You know, there was all these warnings that Trump is going to sabotage Obamacare and it's going to lead to these steep hikes in premiums, and we've seen yet the opposite here.
That's exactly right. I mean, the Congressional Budget Office predicted that this year premiums would go up on average by 16%. And they cited two reasons for that. One is that Congress eliminated the tax penalty on the uninsured. And second, the Trump administration allowed for people to buy certain policies that don't conform to Obamacare rules. So the prediction was premiums would go up on average by 16%. The reality, premiums actually came down on average nationally for the first time in the history of the Obamacare program. And as you mentioned, they came down most dramatically in states that got waivers from certain Obamacare regulations. So the whole idea that Trump was going to sabotage Obamacare, actually Obamacare was sabotaging itself, and the Trump administration stepped in and actually made the Affordable Care Act at least a little bit more affordable. Now, it doesn't solve all the problems, but it certainly moves in the right direction.
Wait, so you mean to tell me that the Congressional Budget Office got it wrong? I mean, we're constantly told that the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says so, and if they say so, then by golly, we have to do whatever they tell us. You mean to tell me they got it wrong? They're nonpartisan. How could they get it wrong?
Well, you can be nonpartisan and still get your prediction wrong. I mean, the weatherman's nonpartisan, and he doesn't always get it right either. But the point is that Washington generally and the people who work there, and they're good. These are good people. I don't think the people at the Congressional Budget Office are evil or mean-spirited.
Sure.
I think they're really trying to do the best they can do, but they just can't predict markets. They can't understand that a tax cut, for example, as you say, it can actually bring more revenues into a state treasury than sometimes a tax increase. They can't understand that if you lift a penalty against people for being uninsured, it's not necessarily going to raise premiums. So they miss these things that are pretty obvious to a lot of us, but not so obvious to the experts.
Well, Doug Badger with the Heritage Foundation, I know you've got to run. We greatly appreciate your time. Final question for you. You know, if in Montana, given some of the reforms that a Republican legislature and auditor have delivered and a Republican president have helped delivered, that's lowered premiums in Montana a little bit, but we're not even one of these states that's obtained some of these other waivers. So I'd imagine if we get some of these other waivers that are available, we might be able to do even better.
Well, I'm hoping that your state and your governor will go along with that. The administration has said, look, states, come to us with some ideas of how to do this better, and we're going to work with you and give you the opportunity to try new ideas, test them out, and see if they work. And I think right now, that's probably the best hope we have for making health insurance affordable again.
All right. Doug Badger with the Heritage Foundation. Check out the piece, thedailysignal.com. Obamacare caused premiums to spike. Here's how states are lowering them again. Doug, thanks again for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
All right. You too.